Good afternoon, or depending on where you may be joining us from, good morning, and welcome to today's program, USPTO Hour Patent Center Updates. I'm Sean Hunter, the Director of the Office of Patents Stakeholder Experience here at the United States Patent and Trademark Office. The USPTO recently unveiled 7 patents business unit priorities, which are represented by the acronym INVENTS. Each priority represents the agency's commitment to strengthen the United States patent system, enable innovators to secure patent protection for their inventions, and provide durable patent rights that make the United States intellectual property system the best in the world. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce Greg Vidovich, Acting Deputy Commissioner for Patents, and Richard Rich Fernandez, Information Technology Program Manager and Lead Product Owner for Patent Center. Greg Vidovich serves as an Acting Deputy Commissioner for Patents in the Patents Business Unit here at the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Greg began his career at the USPTO as a patent examiner, then became a supervisory patent examiner, and was promoted to the Senior Executive Service, SES, in 2012 as a Director in Technology Center, or TC 3600. Subsequently, he served as an Associate Commissioner for the Office of Patent Quality, an Associate Commissioner for the Office of Patent Information Management, and an Assistant Commissioner for Patents with operational oversight of the Office of Information Technology for Patents, or OITP, the Office for Application Processing for Patents, or OAPP, and the Office of Application Processing and Systems Administration. Mr. Vidovich currently provides executive oversight and coordinates the activities of the examination of applications and patent examining functions in Technology Centers 1700 and 2800. Additionally, he serves as the primary focal point for patents information technology initiatives, application processing, application filing, and patents publication. Mr. Vidovich received his undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering from the Pennsylvania State University. Richard or Rich Fernandez is the lead product owner of Patent Center for the United States Patent and Trademark Office. He helped oversee the development of Patent Center, which replaced eOffice Web and Pair. He has extensive experience working with the Patent Electronic Business Center, or EBC, and DOCX filings. He received a Bachelor's in Information Systems from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County in 2001, and started working as a federal employee at the USPTO in 2009. With that, it is my absolute pleasure to turn it over to Greg and Rich.
All right, welcome. I appreciate everyone joining us today to talk about the Patent Center overview. I'm happy to be here with Rich. Rich is excellent in helping. He's going to help me present the materials today. So our agenda is, we have a long agenda, but we're going to walk through materials and hopefully address any questions you have at the end. Additionally, it's going to be Patent Center overview, electronic filing process, and registration and identity verification. Next, we'll talk briefly about the eOffice action and DOCX best practices, and also PDF best practices. Rich will also talk about bulk association of applications, a question I often get from stakeholders. And we're going to talk about some recent and future updates with Patent Center. I think you'll be intrigued by what we've done and accomplished over the past few months. And lastly, Rich will talk about some of the assistance and resources from EBC. EBC we work with a lot, and we work very collaboratively with EBC. Patent Center, as you know, is our electronic filing system for ingesting all patent applications into the office. I'd like to, on the next bullet, is talk about some of the overall numbers. Last year alone, we got over 2 million new and follow-on utility non-provisional filings. The total is over 7 billion pages. Again, I kind of paused to talk about that. That's just an intense volume we get in the system at over 2 million filings and over 7 billion pages. The system is accommodating a lot of ingesting into our overall systems. The benefits, obviously, it incorporates into a single system your IP filing management of all single interface for you to enhance your user experience. One of the big advantages of using DOCX we talked about before when we launched is it allows you to submit a single DOCX document, and the system would automatically separate those into the abstract, specification, and claims. And we have an update on that to talk about at the end. Allows you to get separate submission and payment receipts. One thing I like to emphasize is the training mode. I think that's a nice tool the team put in for our stakeholders. The training mode allows you to go in and test the system put in data, and we don't retain any of that data. So anything you put into the system will not be retained. It's a great opportunity to go in there, test the feedback document. We look at your application, we provide feedback on it. It allows you to go in, and if you're new to the system, it allows you to go in and test it. So I strongly encourage you to use the training mode. I think it's a huge win for particularly those who aren't familiar with the system, as well as those who do use the system and look at the feedback document in advance. Obviously, the system reduces paper. As you know, we still accept paper in the office, where we're pushing more and more to try to get as much electronic filing as possible. We still get a small percentage of paper filing, so I thank you all for those using the electronic filing system. It's more efficient for us to process. Lastly, it allows for saving submissions. You can come back at any time and submit at a later time. So it's a flexible system, and we thought about it a lot with our stakeholders in mind and how they would use the system. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Rich. Rich is going to walk through a lot of different processes. I'll fill in occasionally, but Rich is going to walk through the filing process, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Greg. This electronic filing process outlines the different steps in Patent Center. So the first step is to access Patent Center. It's required that you first register and have an account. The next step is to choose the filing type. So some examples of the filing type may be new utility, provisional, design, 371, to name a few, followed by entering the applicant information. So this is the portion of Patent Center where you need to fill out your bibliographic information, such as the ADS. So we highly recommend one to fill out the web ADS, where data in the web ADS is automatically loaded into the USPTO systems, their database, compared to filling out custom ADS form, where someone in their office will need to manually key that information in. The third option of the ADS is the fillable form, which we also recommend you to use. Data entered on the fillable ADS, data will be automatically loaded into the USPTO databases. So again, to recap, the first two, the web ADS and the fillable ADS, AIA 14, is what we recommend. And then the last option, if you choose, is the custom ADS that your office has generated. We don't recommend that so much because, again, someone has to manually key in that data. The auto-loadable ADS is something that we really recommend for you to utilize. Next, you would attach your documents by just dragging and dropping your files, whether it be DOCX or PDF, into the UI. And then you would review your documents to make sure that you've uploaded the correct documentation. Next, you would calculate your fees. If applicable, you are welcome to skip that. If you don't have any fees, you're welcome to pay for fees at a later time, a later date, if you so choose to. And then you would confirm and submit. Upon submitting your application, you will receive an acknowledgement receipt that has a timestamp and also the application number. If you choose that you had fees to pay for, you will be directed to our finance system that we integrate with, and then you can pay for your fees in that manner. And then lastly, you'll have your payment receipt, and then you can access your submission in Patent Center. Greg touched at the last point, you can also save your submission. So one of the things that we've improved on in Patent Center is the ability to save your submission for up to 14 days on our server, compared to our older system, which only allowed you to save your submission for up to 7 days. Patent Center registered user. In order for you to utilize Patent Center, you'll need to have a registered account. So this is something that we required starting September 11th of last year. It's required that you have an account. You need to be registered. There's no longer the ability to log in as a guest or unregistered filer to file or view applications. And this benefits the user in Office. It prevents fraudulent activity. It also helps with us controlling data mining, so that way it won't impact the availability of our system as a whole, so that way everyone could utilize our system in the same manner. As a registered user, you'll also have full access to Patent Center's features, such as I mentioned, the saving up to 14 days on our server. You can submit follow-on documents to Patent Center. So if you file your initial application and you're a registered user, you can then file additional documents same day or the next day. and you can also pay fees. One thing that we did, and Greg mentioned this earlier, is that there is a separation of the payment receipt and acknowledgement receipt. So in eOffice Web, it was combined into one. But the problem with that, because there's a dependency with fees, sometimes it would take some time before the acknowledgement receipt would be generated. So with Patent Center, we've enhanced that and separated the two, knowing that we do have dependencies with our finance system. So we can generate that acknowledgement receipt that has your timestamp and your application number right away. And then once you complete your payment, you'll also receive a separate receipt for that payment. So that's the difference between what we had before and what we have now in Patent Center. Identity verification. As I mentioned, on September 11th, it is now required for all users to become registered. And this will protects our customer data, deter fraudulent filings, and allows us to, again, monitor our data miners to make sure that there is no abuse of the system. It doesn't degrade the quality of one trying to access our system or file. So it's a benefit to the office, benefit to our stakeholders that we now have moved over to require everyone to become registered. For those who wish to not log in and utilize ODP, which is Open Data Portal, you may do so. It's an alternative means in which one could view published applications or issued patents and even view the image file wrapper. You could perform the same functionality that one did in Patent Center, except in Open Data Portal, you'll be able to, again, not log in, and you can download the documents, again, documents from the image file wrapper. So the same functionality exists, but now in a separate outside system, not within Patent Center. Not to say that you can still access published applications within Patent Center. However, you'll need to be registered. So you can still search. It's just that you'll have to log in. And if you choose not to log in, there's that ODP solution for our stakeholders.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to talk about here briefly is when we launched this between you have to be logged into into myuspto.gov as well as ID verification. We had some feedback from stakeholders that they wanted quicker access, but what happened was it substantially improved performance on the tool. We're going to talk more about that on our migration to the cloud. Between those three pieces, we saw substantial increases in our performance. We often got feedback from stakeholders on rate limiting and things were slow because of some of the data mining activities that we've experienced and other issues. But these two things that Rich just talked about, as well as we're going to talk about migration to the cloud, we've experienced some increase in performance. And I've anecdotally talked to stakeholders, and they've expressed that same sentiment back to me, that they've experienced better use of Patent Center. So we appreciate that feedback and still accept any feedback there. So back to you, Rich.
Thank you. So here are the options for ID verification that we have currently. The first option is to utilize the online portion of verifying one's ID. First step is to use ID.me, which should approximately take 30 minutes or less. And then you'll need to complete the self-enrollment process within Patent Center. And since its inception of March 2025, over 45,000 inventors and practitioners have utilized this process. So it's a quick and easy way for one to verify your identification and to become a registered user. We still have the other option, the paper option, available to our users. And that requires one to fill out the Patent Electronic System Verification form and have it notarized, so that way you can prove who you are. And then someone will have to manually review it, and it could take up to 2 weeks to process. So it's a lengthy process in comparison to the online ID verification. And it's a very simple process, I want to say, in which we've had little to few complaints utilizing this ID verification. And if you have any issues trying to complete the online verification process, please contact the EBC. They'll be able to help troubleshoot any issues that you may encounter. The eOffice Action Program. The eOffice Action Program is designed to notify our applicants via email that there is an outgoing correspondence for you to download in Patent Center. So once you receive this email notification, then you simply log into Patent Center and then download your correspondence. You can view them. And about 4 million eOffice Action notifications, including e-grants, have been sent in 2025.
I'd like to pause there real quick. I just want to emphasize that number again. We talked about the 7 billion pages that we received annually in 25, as well as over all those office actions new office action due at filings. But to Rich's point, in addition to that, we have 4 million eOffice action notifications going out. So the system is very robust in notifying your stakeholders of everything that's happening within the system.
Thanks. And opting in to receive electronic notification will automatically stop the agency from sending most mail communications to you. And email notifications expedite the availability of these correspondence up to 3 days. One key note is you can assign up to 3 email addresses to receive these alerts. So that's important. So in your customer number, you can assign up to 3 email addresses. I know I've talked to some firms where they'll have 1 email address set to a distribution list and another one set to someone internally as the main POC to make sure they're the office or coordinator. And then the third one is a backup email sent to another distribution list. So it's however you want to manage this, but please take advantage of the 3 email addresses that you have available that you can be notified of this outgoing correspondence. When an office action becomes available, participants receive notification 5 a.m. for each customer number. And an electronic postcard reminder will also be sent for only correspondence that requires a response if they have been viewed within 7 days. So the last bullet, Federal Registry notice that describes in detail the eOffice action program, including steps to take if for some reason there's a delay and receiving an email notification. So I invite you to go to that page in our Patent Center website. We also have a link to the eOffice action program that walks over this information too as well. But a great program for you to receive, so that way it replaces the regular mail correspondence, and instead you'll receive the email notification alerting you to view the outgoing correspondence. Okay, DOCX and Patent Center. So we have some statistics here. 93% of initial filings are submitted in DOCX format, and about 80% submission include the auxiliary PDF. So the auxiliary PDF is your own PDF that you've uploaded that should be exactly what the DOCX has. And here are a couple of best practices. Valid section headers. It's important that you utilize valid section headers so that way our system can determine the split of each section. So we want to make sure that we split the specification, claims, and abstract of your sections accurately, but it's important that you utilize these section headers. And these section headers are located on our Patent Center information page for you to utilize. We also have DOCX trainings that go over the steps of filing a DOCX. So we invite you to participate in those training sessions. These occur monthly. And again, it walks you through the various screens in DOCX. We'll have in our website an updated video that will show you how to upload it in your own time to view. And also the feedback document. The next bullet talks about the feedback document. Will reveal exactly where the warnings and errors are located. So that way you can make corrections. So this feedback document will show if you have, let's say, a period missing at the end of your claims, like a typographical error, or a misnumbering of your claims. You have 2 number 2s, for example, in your claims. Some of these will fall into objections later on, but instead of having that typographic error go through, we warn you up front saying, hey, please make these corrections, and they'll show you where in the feedback document to go to locate it. So that way you can make corrections back in your source document and make the necessary corrections, re-upload the document, and then therefore you won't receive that warning anymore. So again, we invite you to go to training mode, as what Greg alluded to earlier. Go to training mode, practice your DOCX uploads. That feedback document is there and it is available for you to utilize. So that way you could see the different types of validations that we offer in DOCX. We also ask you to review the auxiliary PDF to ensure that you've uploaded the correct thing. As with all documents, we ask you to review just to make sure you've attached the right documents to your submission. And for more information, again, we invite you to go to the Patent Center information page where you can look up information such as the user guides, our Patent Center DOCX best practices guide, the warnings and errors, and all the section headers that we support, as well as all the fonts that we support for DOCX. So there's a listing of valuable information on our DOCX information page for you to take advantage of. So bulk association of applications. This slide is talking about the ability to associate applications to a customer number. So there are several ways to do that. The first method is to utilize the upload spreadsheet. This template is available for you to download and access on our EBC website. And just follow the instructions. But basically, what you can do is on the Excel spreadsheet is list down all the applications that you want associated to your customer number. And the key factor in doing this to make sure it gets processed correctly is that you need to, on the cover letter, make sure that the person who has power of attorney is signing off on this change. So there needs to be a valid authorization for this change of correspondence in a bulk process. So that's one process in which you could save the Excel spreadsheet on a thumb drive, mail it along, don't forget the cover letter, so that way someone in the EBC will process it and make the appropriate changes. So that way all the applications will now become associated to a customer number. So the advantage of the spreadsheet is you can list thousands and thousands of applications and to make sure that you change the correspondence or make sure that the correspondence is set to a particular customer number. Secondly, another way you can change your correspondence address is to use the form 122. So the difference with this form, though, you can only associate one application at a time. So I believe this could be faxed or mailed to the office, and again, someone will manually process this. The third option is to submit the change of correspondence address online in Patent Center using the Manage tab. Now with this, it's the same thing as a customer number upload spreadsheet. You'll need to have power of attorney, so this is limited to practitioners, and you can upload up to 20 applications at a time. For all these options for the customer number upload spreadsheet, along with the correspondence change in Patent Center, you can also change the maintenance fee address as long as you have POA. And again, you get 20 at a time, and you need to have POA for this to take place. And then please note that the change of power of attorney cannot be completed online. There is no batch process for that. That needs to be submitted individually per application. So that's an important piece to keep in mind. And below is a screenshot where you can find the ability to update the application address within Patent Center. So here are some recent updates to Patent Center. To reduce the impactful data mining, the 401s, as what Greg had mentioned, errors, decrease rate limiting issues, we've migrated to the cloud, making searching and downloading more available to our customers. So that was updated in September 20 of last year. We've also removed unregistered filing and viewing that occurred in September 11th, which requires everyone to log in. And to be honest, the majority of our stakeholders were filing and registered. I think we ran the report as about 6% or less, maybe 5%, I'm not quite sure, but a very few amount of folks were using the unregistered portion to file applications. Most of our stakeholders were using it to search for published applications as unregistered as an easy way to search. But again, as I mentioned earlier, there is that ODP solution for folks that don't want to log in. They can still view that published application using that system. And then the customer service experience survey shows that there has been an increase of 7% in our trust, and also satisfaction has increased to 9%.
Over 9%.
Yeah, over 9%. And here are future updates to Patent Center. So we have the ability to file a DOCX design application electronically. That's planned for February 2026. So in design applications, drag and drop your DOCX as you would normally do for utility applications. You can also include your drawings if you wish. That will be loaded to the appropriate repositories here in our systems. So that's a nice advantage that you can utilize in Patent Center for DOCX and in design applications. Also in February 2026, you'll have the ability to preview split files. So right now in Patent Center for follow-ons, you do have the ability to preview the split files pre-submission. So we're going to have that consistency with new filings. So with new filings, you upload a multi-section DOCX, and then what you can do is review those files and see that the split files have been generated based on your section headers. So because of that, if you notice that your files were not split accurately because maybe there's a typo, just giving an example, a typographical error in your claims heading, you can go ahead and make that correction, and you'll notice now your claims is now split from your specification because that proper section header is being used. So that's the advantage of having that preview ability of your split files prior to submission. So we encourage you to check on that functionality when that is going to be available, again, sometime in February. And then lastly, an update to Patent Center is the ability to preview the DOCX to TIFF conversion before submission. That was planned for June 2026. The importance of having this is that for the DOCX, TIFF, let me start with that. TIFF is a file format in which our examiners are able to see here using their examination systems. So we thought, wouldn't it be neat for the applicants to also see that same view? So this is important for DOCX. So if you have, say, drawings in your DOCX and you want to convert and you want to upload that, we'll have that conversion pre-submission, so that way you'll be able to see exactly what the examiners will see. So that's important. I say that for images because if you're submitting something in grayscale, you'll notice that there's degradation in the quality of your images because grayscale is going to be converted to TIFF and there is a loss. There's a recommendation that if you're going to submit images, I'll talk to this point later on, is that it needs to be bitonal black and white. If not, then it needs to have a doc code non-black and white drawings, so that way it gets loaded accurately into our systems. So here are some PDF best practices. Start off with color text. It's recommended that you have text that'll be black. An example that I'm going to share with you is the use of track changes using a word authoring tool. Say, let's take Microsoft Word as an example. If you have track changes and you need to make an insertion or deletion, and you type some insertion text in there, you notice that the color is defaulted to blue text. So when that occurs, that means you're not submitting in black, you're just not realizing it, but that text is now blue for that new inserted text. And you convert that now PDF because it's blue. You converted that DOCX to maybe to PDF using your own system, your own converter tool, and you're uploading that color, the color text to Patent Center. That's going to cause degradation of the quality of that text. So you'll notice that it's not going to be as visible, it's faint. And that's because, again, the text should be black. So that's a point of emphasis that we're trying to share with you, that text should be black in your documents. Otherwise, the legibility of it won't be clear. There'll be degradation of it. And it's important that you use, compared to, sorry to switch topics, but if you submit in DOCX, these amendments, we change the color from whatever it is to, if it's amendments, to from blue to black automatically. So that's another advantage of DOCX that we have. But jumping back to PDF, yes, we recommend that you have black text when submitting your documents to the Patent Center. Next, with images, it's recommended that it be bitonal unless you're using the drawings other than black and white. That's non-black and white for those images that you're uploading. It's the same reasoning. If there's color in your images, then there's going to be degradation. Even grayscale. If you're using grayscale and you're using non-black and white drawings as your document description, then once you submit that and retrieve it in the image file wrapper, you'll notice the quality of the drawings isn't quite there. And that's because you selected non-black and white, but it truly is not bitonal. And that's the reason why there is degradation in the quality of your images. And I remember troubleshooting an instance where they thought it was black and white because it was closely, but resembles black and white. But if you drill down using a PDF tool such as Adobe, you could then leverage that information and see that it's truly not bitonal black and white. It will detect grayscale there. So there are tools out there that will help you determine that this drawing is not completely black and white. And again, if it's color, we invite you to use non-black and white drawings, but believe there's petitions associated with that. If you're going to submit that in a regular new utility application, there are different rules associated with drawings. So I defer to our legal advisors for that recommendation. The last tip for the best practices are images. They need to not be in layers. So multiple layers prior to submission need to be flattened before submitting to our office. The layers should be marked visible, flattened, to ensure that the examiner sees everything in its place. The problem with layering is that different layers within the PDF, and you have that feature available when uploading your PDF, there potentially could be some loss of content, because what happens is we flatten that PDF, and we don't want this to happen. Content could be missing. So that's why it's important that if there are layering within your PDF, that you flatten it to avoid any loss of content in your submission. In fact, if there are layering within your PDF, there is a warning that we throw in Patent Center for these PDFs to hopefully prevent you from submitting these layers in your submission.
We want to talk about some of the Patent Center takeaways. Rich talked a lot about the registration and ID verification. Again, this is critical to the success of Patent Center to help us understand who's in the system. So it's protecting your data. We're very vigilant of protecting data. We take it very seriously here in the office. So we want to make sure we safeguard all, particularly pre-published data, everything. We want to safeguard all that data. So this is a step we had to take to keep that data secure as possible. Another thing we've noticed is it's a deterrent to help fraudulent filings, or not, it helps prevent the fraudulent filings in there, because we know who's filing these applications now with the ID verification, or helps us pinpoint better as to where it is. But also the bigger point is it allows us to see who's mining data within Patent Center. This was a big issue before we made these steps within Patent Center. A lot of times we had to throttle back rate limiting and throttle back on our users, and that led to degradation in the performance of Patent Center. Since we've made these changes, we've noticed a substantial increase in our performance on Patent Center. And again, like I mentioned anecdotally, I talked to a bunch of stakeholders when I'm out and about, and they've said they've noticed improvements in Patent Center over the past few months, and I appreciate that feedback. The next big takeaway is the cloud migration. Teams did that also in September of 25. So Rich and team were very busy in September of 25 making these two big changes. The move to the cloud is a huge change, especially for the size of Patent Center. Again, when I talked about the overall size of the volumes that we get on a daily basis or over an annual basis, it's pretty phenomenal if you think about it. And that's just only 1 year. I mentioned 7 billion pages. That's year over year that we're doing this. So moving to the cloud was a big win for us to move that system to the cloud. It not only does it improve performance, it helps with reliability, availability, and scalability. Rich teased me about the ability part, but it really helps with us to make sure this system is available. We know intellectual property is a 24/7 business, and so our system, we want to make sure it's available to our stakeholders. Other than routine maintenance, which we occasionally have, we want to make sure it's always available to our stakeholders. We do understand the critical need of timely filing these things at all periods of the day, and also have our global stakeholders also that file in our system. So again, we appreciate any feedback on that. And again, so what has this done for us? These two big changes. Rich hit on it earlier, just over some recent, very, very recent user experience data we call CX data. We've noticed an increase in trust as well as satisfaction. We just, in that short period of time, I do believe that's going to continue to increase the satisfaction and trust, because of the systems have been improved based on the cloud, as well as the registration and the ID verification. I think those have been big wins, as well as the feedback we're getting from stakeholders on. Rich mentioned about the 3 tools that we're going to be putting in, 2 in February and 1 later in this calendar year. So we continue to take feedback. Rich and team work very collaboratively with EBC. And anything that goes there, Rich and team are usually looped in to help resolve any issues there. So those are the big takeaways. And I'm going to go over to Rich again to go over some resources
Yes.
In our systems.
So the Patent Center information page I mentioned earlier has the user guides, FAQs, as well as trainings and recordings of our DOCX sessions. So we invite you to utilize that page. There's also the Patents Toolkit Foundations, which has general patent process information that you can leverage. The Patent EBC, they're an outstanding resource contact center that's open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. They recently changed the time. With the exception of federal holidays, they're a valuable resource. They're a frontline. They, like what Greg mentioned, we meet with them regularly to identify trends. If there are issues that they are noticing, they let us know so that way we can address it and create a ticket on to make sure that we resolve that issue. And a lot of information that they meet with us, if there is an important issue, we will update it in our Patent Center information page. Stay focused on what's coming up, what's new, workarounds, common issues. So we update that page regularly to make sure that our stakeholders are aware of the different issues or maybe enhancements that is turning up in Patent Center. The EBC also helps with troubleshooting, how to become a registered user. They can answer questions regarding customer numbers since they process it there at their office. They also help out with customer number data changes, which you can also do electronically in Patent Center. I failed to mention that. They also assist with PDX DAS registration inquiries. So they help out with a number of things. Again, they're the front line. They can be reached via telephone, also via email, and they're a great resource. They will stay on the phone as long as they can to help troubleshoot. I know some other help desks outside of the USPTO has a certain SLA. They need to get into the right number of calls within a day, but with EBC, they're in a unique position where they're able to handhold you and walk you through the process and not rush you out the door. They're there to help out. And again, they're a valuable resource to Patent Center and to the agency.
I think that is the end of our substantive presentation. So first, I want to say a huge thank you to both Greg and Rich for taking time out of their busy schedules to join us today. As I mentioned earlier, questions were taken in advance. And if you guys have questions, I see them coming in pretty fast and furiously. You can send them to USPTO Hour, which is HOUR at USPTO.gov. With that, we'll go ahead and get started with the Q&A portion of our program. So first, can you guys give more real-life examples of how requiring both being a registered user and having ID verification have helped performance in Patent Center?
Thanks for that question. That's an excellent question. We talked about it a little bit earlier.
Sure.
It gets into with the performance. It really helps with the reliability, speed. We talked before September, we were having issues with timeouts. We were throttling people back, so things were going slower in the system. So by going into the system, changing these two basic requirements of understanding who's in the system with ID verification and also with the cloud, we've noticed a substantial increase on performance. So people are going through quicker. Those are a couple real life examples of what's happening on the system. And also with the cloud, we allows us to do scalability. I mentioned some of the other pieces, but we can also scale based on loads, and it gives us a little more flexibility in that space.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's see. Is there any plan to fix the persistent and highly disruptive authentication problems that lead to users receiving 401 error messages?
So since we moved to the cloud, like what Greg had mentioned, there have been many talks about how much we've improved. So if there are any issues about timeouts or 401s, please let us know. We'll have a call with your office or with the individual and go on a call with our technical teams to find out and trace what exactly is going on. So I want to say, since we moved to the cloud, those problems have nearly decreased or are non-existent. So if you have that issue, please don't hesitate to contact us. Send an email to the EBC and we'll get on the call to help troubleshoot your issues that you may be experiencing. Hopefully this is an older question that you haven't gone to Patent Center in quite some time, but we've updated it. So far you should not have that issue.
Okay. Thank you for that, Rich. Can you provide more information on how quickly a stakeholder could receive the eOffice action notifications that you were mentioning earlier?
Sure, yes. So within our email notifications are typically sent out at 5 a.m. Every day. So compared to US mail, you could potentially, if you're sending out correspondence across the country, you could get it 3 to 5 days later, who knows?
Right.
But with email notifications, you'll get it instantaneously. You'll get the notification with a listing of all your applications that are associated with your customer number, and it'll let you know that, hey, you need to go into Patent Center, outgoing correspondence, and view that document. And in case you have, by some chance, missed the time to review that, we'll send you an electronic postcard that says you need to review this correspondence that is timely. So that way you won't miss that outgoing correspondence.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's see. What are some of the benefits now that the office is receiving over 90%, I think you mentioned, of initial filing in the DOCX format?
I'll take that one. There's a lot of benefits, Sean. It's at 93%, and teams are looking at what we can do to close that gap of the 7%. So we're looking, and we'll be willing to talk to firms, whoever, to see if they have any questions or concerns. We're more than happy to discuss that. Some of the big advantages of DOCX, we talked about this when we launched DOCX, was the ability to get clean text in the office. We use clean text in a variety of places within the office. One of the big advantages right now, Sean, is DOCX is being used. We're bringing internal publications like PG Pubs into the office. We're able to leverage that clean text to formulate that PG Pub that we're starting to publish within the office. Another advantage is efficiency. Before we used to get PDFs, we had to go through and get those all OCR'd to get the text out of that PDF, which, as many people know, it isn't usually clean. It's very good. Systems are very good for OCR, but sometimes there's mistakes. Having that clean text is more efficient. We use that text throughout the application process. A lot of people may not realize this, but that clean text we use within our AI search tools.
Okay.
What's unique about our AI search tools is we ingest the text of the application, excuse me, and the claims, and leverage that to perform our AI similarity search. That's a very unique piece of that. Having that clean text in there is very useful, and we're encouraging individuals to use that also for the amendment process, because we also ingest the amendments into our search systems to help formulate that AI search tool. So we use the clean text in numerous places, publications, in our AI search tools and others. And we're looking across the board, looking to our docket viewer tool for examiners, how they can leverage that downstream. So we strongly encourage DOCX, and we want to close that gap, that 7% gap, and hopefully minimize that in the near future.
Sure. Okay. Thank you for that. Let's see. I think you mentioned earlier during the presentation at some point about saving submissions. How can we access saved submissions?
So through My Workbench, as a registered user, you'll have the ability to access your saved submission through that manner. As I mentioned, you can save up to 14 days on our server. So that's a great benefit to our users, an improvement from our old days in EFS Web. And again, it's something that you can access through My Workbench.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's see. You guys kind of spoke to this briefly, but I guess just for clarification, are there official channels for reporting Patent Center bugs? I know you mentioned EBC and some other channels. Are there official or maybe even preferred channels for addressing Patent Center, or reporting, I should say, Patent Center bugs?
Sure. So again, EBC is a great resource since they can track the issue at hand. So what's important with the EBC, they're able to create a ticket, right? And with that ticket, it's valuable, so that way we can see the progress of that ticket as it goes from possibly from their team over to ours, and then to the developers to make sure that we have a fix in place. So I'd say the EBC is one avenue.
Okay.
You could email the email mailbox, but in turn we say, hey, EBC, can you create a ticket for us for tracking purposes?
Sure.
So we invite you to email or contact the EBC as the main focal point for any issues that you may have.
Okay, and for those of you who may be wondering, we love acronyms here, but EBC is our Electronic Business Center.
Yeah, one other advantage of the EBC, and Rich hit on this earlier, if there is for some reason in a rare situation that we see a trend, we document that, and the teams are able to document these trends formally within EBC, and then from that the teams go in and look at this and they go, and they dive into it quickly.
Okay.
So that's why it's very important to document that. Contact EBC, because they work collaboratively with Rich and team, and we immediately look at these issues and resolve them.
Okay, thank you both for that. So your touch point is going to be EBC for those of you who are asking. I have another question here. Is it possible that the office might issue written help for those users who find that their MFA, and I'm going to presume that this refers to multi-factor authentication, application is no longer working to provide access to a user's MyUSPTO account or Patent Center?
So again, the EBC would be helpful for that, but we
Okay.
also have the UCC in some ways to help with that too as well. But I'd recommend first contact the EBC. They can first triage it to make sure that it's not any other issues that they may be experiencing. And then they could make sure that, and again, the advantage of the EBC, they're able to stay on the call as long as possible. Sometimes they'll do a warm transfer and contact the other help desk and have a collaborative discussion that says, hey, this user is having issues logging into Patent Center with their multi-factor authentication.
Okay.
But we can certainly help out with that too as well. I want to say that we just don't push that to a side. We've gotten calls from users and we've helped troubleshoot with our technical teams to ensure that they are able to log in through the Patent Center system.
Okay. Thank you for that. Let's see. Is it possible to copy saved submissions, especially web ADSs?
No, the web ADSs can be saved on our server, but as far as the content with it, we don't have yet an export feature for that.
Okay.
So no, there is the fillable form that you can utilize, and you could save that if you were planning to use that ADS on multiple submissions.
Sure.
But as far as copying that data, we don't have an export feature with the web ADS. But that's a good point. Maybe that's something that we can look into, maybe like a Rolodex of some sort of saving data so that way you can reuse that information on another filing perhaps.
Okay, we'll take that back. Thank you.
Yep.
Let's see. You talked earlier in the presentation about large associations. Can you provide some more information on that process for, I think it was called customer number upload spreadsheets?
Sure. So customer number upload spreadsheet, as I had mentioned, you could put thousands of applications into an Excel spreadsheet. And that spreadsheet is available on the EBC website where you could download the template, save it on the flash drive, and then mail it over. Again, what's a key important piece to it is the cover letter. You'll need to have POA, and inventors can also utilize the customer number upload spreadsheet. If they have multiple applications that they want to associate to a customer number, they can utilize that solution of using that spreadsheet and mailing it off to the EBC for them to process.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Let's see. With the ability to detect and provide a preview of TIFFs, the format you were talking about earlier, to allow transparency of figures inside the spec, will this also apply to images of math or science equations within the spec?
Correct. Yes, it will convert everything. So whatever is in the DOCX, it'll be converted to that TIFF image, so that way you can see how it looks like, including mathematical figures, equations, tables, images. So all that will be available for you to view and download before you submit.
Okay, that's a good question. Yep.
Let's see. Speaking of TIFFs, what is the advantage of previewing the DOCX and TIFF prior to submission, as well as previewing split files for DOCX filings?
Sure. So I'll take that. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. That's right.
So for the DOCX, in order for you to preview the TIFF, as I mentioned earlier, especially if the DOCX has images or tables, we want to make sure that it's converted properly. So this will give you advance warning if you didn't realize that that image had grayscale. You'll notice that the TIFF conversion, the quality of it has been degraded. So it's a way for you to notice that there are issues with your color image that you didn't know was color. You thought it was black and white, but apparently it's grayscale. So that's one advantage. The other question was if the advantage of split files, preview. As I mentioned, with previewing your split files, you'll be able to see if our section header detection has worked properly, but maybe there was a typographical error that you had in your section header, and therefore it caused the spec and claims, I'll just give you an example, to be combined. And that's because maybe your claims section didn't have the proper header. So it allows you to preview things exactly how the examiner will see it by you utilizing that feature that we're going to have for you to preview your split files. Essentially, you'll be able to see what the examiner sees. So that's another advantage of
Very nice.
previewing that split
Will that be in
files.
Will that be in training mode?
Yes, that will also be in
Okay.
training mode. Good question.
So that is also in training mode. I saw a question in here earlier regarding training mode. It spoke to the fact of training mode used to be available without a
Sure.
USPTO account, but it appears that is no longer the case. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
Right. There was a
Just
initiative.
initiative, just a decision. We want to know who's in our systems at all times.
Okay, perfect.
Basically, so that's we had to make that decision to prevent any bad apples.
Bad
Right, we
actors,
just
yep.
want bad actors. We want to make sure we want to make the stakeholders are legitimately fine. We want to protect their data at all costs.
Protect the integrity
Yep.
of the data.
Mhm.
Understood. Okay. How can you deactivate your My USPTO account when you leave a law firm?
So there are a couple of things if you leave a law firm that you'll need to do, right? You need to make sure that, first of all, not related to your USPTO account, but you need to remove your registration number from that customer number. So anyone associated to that customer can do so. You can remove yourself from it. But to deactivate your account, if you're moving to another law firm, I probably defer to the UCC help desk for that one,
Okay.
because the EBC doesn't troubleshoot deactivation of USPTO accounts.
Okay.
So I defer to that help desk that can help walk you through the process of removing or deleting an account.
Okay. Thank you for that. Let's see. More frequently in the past few months, we upload a filing to the Patent Center and we immediately receive an electronic receipt. However, it appears the document which was uploaded does not appear in the file wrapper for a few days or sometimes a little bit longer. Is that a known issue or
So,
something to be addressed?
well, it's I want to say that not everything is 100%. So there could be issues. There could be issues with that particular event. We'll have to know the details of that particular problem
Okay.
to figure out why that case didn't fully load. There could have been someone who manually saw that and closed it internally, and that's why
Okay.
you can't see. So it all depends on the scenario.
Mhm.
But we invite you, if you do see that problem, guess what I'm going to say? Contact the EBC.
EBC.
So
Sure.
that way we can look into that issue and investigate further why the documents didn't load. I mean, there could be other problems. We depend on other systems to
It's
load.
in our systems.
Right. There could be a transmission issue where we
Okay.
route the documents and there was something that stuck. So it all depends on the scenario that we have to try to drill down and see exactly what caused the issue.
Sure. A common thread for you guys that may be having challenges is to feel free to reach out to the EBC
Yeah.
to flag those issues so that they can be monitored and tracked. It may be larger than just you, and it sounds like Greg and Rich will get reports of those things. So again, can't iterate enough to you guys to go ahead and reach out to the EBC with your issues so that there is awareness. Let me see here. Can you explain examples of images consisting of multiple layers and how filers can maybe potentially see those or detect those prior to submission?
So with layering, there are tools out there. I don't want to advertise a specific tool, but there are tools out there that can detect, hey, is this document contain any bitone other than black and white? So there are tools out there. I know that Adobe has a feature that has a hide to unhide layering, but there are tools out there that can flatten your PDF that if it contains layering to do so. So
Okay.
it's outside tools that you have to rely on. There's so many variety of there's such a variety of PDF tools. I can't say exactly how to do that.
Okay.
There's also the ability to flatten an image by printing as image. That's also
Okay.
a step that I know that we've troubleshoot. If you want to flatten something and there are layers, print as image using your PDF tool.
Okay.
So that way it flattens everything, and you might want to verify once it's flattened that it captures everything there before you submit your document. Always review before you hit submit.
Okay. Thank you for that. Are there any updates regarding PCT US 371 processing, and are there plans for DOCX to be introduced for those processing of 371s?
So I can talk to the 371 DOCX. So right now you can submit DOCX in 371 submissions. You should be able to do that. And if you have any issues, please contact the EBC. And then the first question was, question was dealing with.
Let me go back.
Sorry.
Any updates regarding PCT 371 processing times?
That
I'll
I
have to get back to. Yeah.
Okay. We'll get back to you guys on that one. Let's see. How do I find my account number, or do I need it if I'm already logged in for submitting an application? And I guess this sounds more like a user interface question in terms of once they're in Patent Center.
Right. Once they're in Patent Center, you shouldn't need account number.
Yeah.
You do have a customer number. That's one thing that's important. And all the customer number represents is your correspondence address. As I mentioned, you can associate 3 email addresses to that customer number, but there is no account number that you should remember.
Okay. I know we're running close on time here. I'm going to try to get a couple more questions in. Is there a specific time of day that the USPTO, that documents filed with the USPTO are uploaded into Patent Center, or are they essentially loaded throughout the day or night?
Yeah, it's instantaneously.
Live process,
ongoing, real time. Okay.
Right.
Let's see. Sorry.
I would imagine traffic's less in the early morning.
Depending on the time
Right,
of day.
right. During peak times, you'll notice
yeah.
that it may not be within seconds, but generally submissions are loaded pretty quickly.
Okay. During the transfer in process, and I think this is a reference to what you were speaking of earlier, what is the best way to go about filing power of attorneys on 1,000+ matters?
Right. There is no, to my knowledge, there is no bulk
easy way.
process to do
Okay.
that. You'll have to do that individually per application.
And we've had that feedback from stakeholders, and that's, and I think that's something we're going to try to tackle,
Sure.
talk to our legal teams also. It's a combination, not just an IT issue. Let's also have to tackle that with our legal teams to see what the capability that is going forward.
Okay. Sorry. I know we're running close on time here. Sure. It seems the keep me signed in radio button doesn't seem to work at times. Is that a known issue, or can we put that on the fix it list? I'm just reading it verbatim.
Sure. For that, please contact the EBC. It could be specific to your account or your login or maybe your browser. We just have to get to the bottom of what exactly is going on.
Okay. I'm looking at the clock here and we're just about out of time. I'll promise you guys the questions that you have submitted, we'll make sure they get passed along to both Greg and Rich and to the team, and we'll try to get a response and get those things addressed for you. I want to say a huge thank you again to both Greg and Rich, who both have very busy schedules. I want to say thank you to you guys for joining us today, taking time out of your schedule. After this event is over, you will receive a post-event survey sent to the email address that you use to register for this event. We would greatly appreciate it if you take the time to go ahead and fill those things out. It is very important to us, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise. We take that feedback and use it to improve upon this program, to flag issues that may be of interest to other areas, etc. So again, if you'd be so kind to take the time, we greatly appreciate it. With that, we hope you have a great rest of the day, great rest of the week, and stay warm, and we'll see you somewhere soon. Thank you.